Well, how are y'all doing? It's been like a month since I filmed anything. Just been out enjoying the snow while it was here. So I've just been in here kind of rearranging things, trying to figure out what I'm going to work on next. As you probably guessed by the title of this video, we're going to be working on the boat. Want to get that ready to go. You know, as soon as it gets warm enough out, we're going to be taking that thing out and want to make sure it's in ship shape, I guess. Ha. But I don't have nearly enough time to go through that force and actually rebuild it properly, so what we're going to do is just pull the rest of that lower unit off there and then get this 4-stroke Yamaha whipped into shape and mounted on the back of there so we can at least use that thing this summer. I'm going to start by pulling these seats out, so we're going to get that done. That way I can get in here, pull the gas tank out, and then get back to the transom. Other than, you know, your typical outboard clamps here, there are a couple of bolts running through the back of the transom holding the outboard on there, so got to be able to get at those to get them out. So let's, like I said, start by pulling these seats out. Alright, much better. Oh, a little bit better anyway. You guys know I can't stand working in dirt. Let's go ahead and try and get that fuel tank out so we can get at the transom from the inside of the boat. Sending unit for a fuel gauge. We'll go ahead and pull that off too right away. Because I know that doesn't work, it'll either have to be replaced or we'll see if we can get it working again. Alright, let's see if I can get this thing out of here without spilling what's left of the fuel all over myself. You know, you guys can help me instead of just standing there watching. Alright, that wasn't so bad. No, don't worry. I got it. It's fine. I got it. I don't know if I showed you guys this already or not, but you know, normally this is like access to the bottom of the boat. So like I said, you can store like water skis down in there, you know, whatever. But it looks like someone put a bottom in this, and with a little drain plug, like they were using it as a cooler or a live well or you know something like that. But you know, I mean, it's not that deep either, so I don't know why they would have been trying to keep fish in there, but to me it almost just looks like they were trying to cover something up. So let's just pull the screws out of there, try and get that out of there, because even if they're not trying to cover something up, I'd still like to be able to use that as storage. So let's get that out of there and see what kind of mess we might find. Looks like these have Loctite on them. So that just really plays into the theory that whoever put this in here didn't want it to come out. Oh, son of a bitch. Don't do that. Yeah. Boy, you know, I guess that doesn't really gain us a whole lot of storage. I thought this was going to be deeper. I wonder if this is factory. I still don't think so. Maybe it is. Doesn't seem like it would be, but either way. It's out now. I wanted it out. If I decide I want to put it back in, I can always put it back in, I guess. I guess the good news is there's nothing glaringly obvious or crazy down here that looks like, you know, somebody was trying to hide something, so that's good, I guess. Still gives us a little bit more storage, I guess. Could toss an anchor down in there or something like that, so we'll run with that for now. Might change it up in the future, who knows. Alright, let's get you guys down in here and take a good look at the transom and everything we're going to have to address back here. So you can kind of see what I was talking about earlier. Definitely looks like someone was in here before and did some work, unless this is factory, but I absolutely doubt that. You know, I'm just going to say it, there's no way this is factory. It just looks, it's a little bit sloppy, and you can see right there, like I was talking about earlier, the bilge pump is actually, like, I don't think it's epoxy, it almost just seems like paint, but it's basically like painted down to the bottom of the hull. So we'll have to rip that out of there and put a new one in there, because that doesn't work anyway. But and then you can see the reinforcement on the back of the transom there. That's all kind of like fresh stuff, and it's all hard, it's all rigid. So I don't know what the deal was, if it had rotted at one point and someone just felt the need to go in there and redo it, but I don't know. Like I said, it seems like it's a halfway decent job, so we're just gonna let it ride for now. And I'm just now realizing that these guys are actually screwed to the hull, and the screws look like they are fairly shot, nice and rusted, so that's gonna kind of suck to get out of there, I think. Who knows, maybe we'll get lucky, but let's not worry about that just yet. We might get lucky and those holes might line up with the Yamaha outboard. I kind of doubt it though. So I think that's just going to be the next thing we're going to do. Let's get that last bolt pulled there, and I guess let's get the rest of the force off the back of this thing. Alright, this should be the last bolt through the hull. Even with the power head off and the vast majority of the weight gone, I guess, this is not the preferred way to do this. I don't really want to be using a ratchet strap, but kind of a work with what you got moment here. Then if this starts to look too sketchy as we start taking it off, I'll have to put it back down and wait till I get the proper lifting strap. Well, the bad news is our hole spacing differs by about 1/2 inch. I believe this was 9.5 inches apart. The Yamaha spacing is 10 inches apart. Because, you know, why would something like that be standardized to make this whole process easier? That being said, I anticipated that was going to be the case, so I think I've got everything I need to patch these holes and then drill new ones and get everything where it needs to be. So I think I'm going to go back to watching the 2001 cinematic masterpiece Shrek, and while I'm doing that, you guys can watch a nice time lapse of me getting this all cleaned up and prepped. So those should be just about good to go. I've got some backing on the inside of the hull. just to stop the filler as it goes through. I'm just going to take some acetone to them real quick, clean up any dust that might be left in there, and then we have to go mix up our filler. We're going to be using Marine Tex. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's probably the best thing for this application. Alrighty, now that I'm done applying that, I decided to go ahead and read the directions, and it sounds like cure time is going to be about 2 to 3 hours, but you can shorten that if you apply a heat source to it, but you're not supposed to use open flames at all. So there's one thing that I have that produces a shitload of heat without open flame. It's those halogen work lights, so I'm going to leave that pointed there and go eat some lunch. So while that is curing, I need to figure out what I'm going to do for clamps here. For whatever reason, this motor didn't have clamps on it, and believe it or not, I couldn't find any on the internet. So I gotta make something to use as clamps, and I guess my plan is to use bolts and then probably a piece of flat bar that's gonna go in between here. And then I think I'll probably just mill some holes into it that the bolts will grab onto, and then that way I've got a nice long piece to use as a clamp there instead of just 2 individual little circles. So let's go make that. Alright, so there's that. Alright, well the Marine Tex set up pretty good here. It's nice and hard, so I'm going to spend a couple minutes here trying to get this all cleaned up. Kind of made a bit of a mess here. I should have tried to clean that up before it hardened, but what are you going to do? Just to try and keep the dust down for the camera and whatnot, I'm going to go set you guys down, but I will catch up with you once I have this all cleaned up. Well, that didn't clean up half bad. I'm pretty happy with that. I could spend quite a bit more time getting the gel coat perfect. Only went up to like 400 grit sandpaper and then just put some hull cleaner on there and then buffed it real quick. I mean, I could do quite a bit more work to make that look better than it does, but I mean, quite honestly, a lot of that's going to be covered up by the transom plate anyway. And I mean, this is really the only angle that you can really see that from. I mean, if this was on the side of the boat, I'd spend some more time getting it to look pretty, but this is, I mean, this is fine. And then, like I was telling you guys earlier, I want to run the threads as far down the length of this bolt as I can, just so I have enough room to play there. I think, honestly, this would probably be enough to get the clamping done, but rather than find out it's not enough, we might as well just run the die down there and get it threaded the rest of the way before even tossing it on. Okay, I think we're ready to try and mount this thing. The one thing I'm not sure of is whether or not the steering cable is going to be compatible with the Yamaha. I think it is. I tried to measure the threads on it. Threads look the same. The only thing I'm not sure about is the length, but I'm just going to bring it over here and hook it up and see if it works. Alright, she's on there, but we do have one small problem. I'm going to have to pull it back off and trim up this aluminum piece here. That trim piece is just, it's not allowing the transom bracket to sit flush against the transom. And I mean, I don't know, it might be fine like that, but I'm not happy with that. So I'm going to pull that back off. I'm going to mark this out first, and we're going to have to trim that up just a little bit, just so this sits flush up against here. We don't have that 1/4 inch gap there, because I think in the long run, that's going to be working against us, you know, creating structural issues. Ideally, in a perfect world, you have all this weight distributed flat against the back of the transom instead of, you know, the majority of that weight is now down here on this corner, and that's just going to cause that to just dig in into the gel coat. Now we kind of saw that, you know, when we pulled the old, when we pulled the force off of there, you saw how the bottom of the transom plate was already kind of pressed in against the gel coat, left a little indent there. That's going to be 10 times worse here without this being flush against there. So long story short, we got to get that pulled off and trimmed up. That should be enough off of there to get that transom plate to sit flat. Let's try it again and see how it fits. Well, she's not looking too bad. Sitting on there pretty good. Everything feels pretty solid. We got steerage. Just got to get those holes drilled in the hull and bolt it down the rest of the way. Okay, I have to pull those back out and silicone them yet, but I wanted to get them through the hull so I could use them to locate the brackets on the inside. So let's go ahead and try and do that. That's looking pretty good. Just got to pull the bolts back out, throw some silicone on them, and then slug them down again. There are locations in the transom bracket there to throw a couple more bolts in there, but I think between the clamps and these two, we should be all right. I think I'm just going to run it like that for now. Alright, well everything's looking pretty good back here. I just went along the transom plate there and just ran a thin bead of caulk there just to kind of seal everything up, make it look a little bit better. And then just resealed along this aluminum piece too, since I actually had to take that off the boat to notch it out back here. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the progress. This seems to be moving along pretty good here. I've just been going over the wiring on the inside of the boat now. It's a bit of a mess, as you can imagine. A lot of deadheads and just stuff that's in there and doesn't need to be in there. So I'm trying to trace it all out and get rid of what doesn't need to be in there and hopefully simplify everything. I was able to verify that this bilge pump actually works, and so does the fuel sending unit. Thought those were both broke, but turns out they were just wired incorrectly, I guess. I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to film. I know electrical work's kind of boring, but maybe I'll hit the highlights, and we'll probably put that in another video. I think this one's getting a little bit long, and I think this is probably a good place to stop. So I think in the next video we'll focus on wrapping up the wiring, and then I don't know if it's going to be warm enough out anytime soon to wash and buff this thing, but the hull is in desperate need of a shine, so I'm going to be doing that at some point as well. I know the engine needs an impeller. Beyond that, I'm not really sure if it needs anything else. I would like to take the carbs off and go through those just as preventative maintenance, and I suppose we'll probably at least change the gear lube in the lower unit. But as far as those carbs go, I've heard that they're kind of a nightmare to get off, and you have to undo all the linkages and everything, and then when you put them back on, they have to be synced, and you have to sync them with the engine running in the water. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It sounds like it's probably the best way to do it, but that sounds like it could get a little bit complicated, but I'll have to look into that and, I guess think it over. But I do think it's been, I know it's been years probably since the carbs have been gone through on that engine, so I've been thinking we should probably do it, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, other than that, once I have the wiring done and the seats back in, she's pretty much going to be ready to go. So until next time, thank you guys very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game